Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Charvak podcast. This is your host, Kushal Mehra. My guest today, it's actually very funny. He's coming on the podcast for the first time. We've spoken on other multiple platforms. I have with me Aadit Kapadia from the MyIndMakers podcast and the MyIndMakers portal, I should say. Aadit, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Kushal. Great fun to be. We've chatted a long time, many times, so it's funny that we're doing this for the first time. But may this not be the last.
Yes. And for the record, तू मेरी podcast पे पहले आया, मैं तेरी podcast पे बाद में आने वाला हूँ. So I won.
You do. Yes, you do. You do. Absolutely.
All right. So Adit, obviously today we're going to be talking about the Bihar elections. So before I honestly ask you some specific questions that I had in mind, so let's start like this. So if somebody was to give you a base platform like this, okay, so how would you summarize the Bihar results? Now a lot of water has flown. So now we kind of know, जिसको जो बोलना था बोल दिया, मतलब वो ये match fixing है, सब कुछ हो गया अभी. So now that everything is done and now we are moving on to the next big show, which is going to be Bengal, in my opinion, from a BJP perspective. So what would your summary of the Bihar elections be?
So if I were to sum it up in like 3 points, right? The first point would be, no doubt, this is a rise of a resurgent BJP in Bihar. They have gotten more seats in terms of strike rate before. In 2010, when they contested with Nitish Kumar, they won 91 out of 102, if I'm not mistaken. But now, in such a close cornered contest, to come so close to be, I think they were between them and RJD, there was a difference of 1 seat. So clearly now they are the 2 poles of Bihar, the RJD and the BJP. Second would be Nitish Kumar's stock has significantly dwindled. He is going to be the face of the NDA. Whether he'll continue to be that after the 2024 elections, I am not so sure. Maybe he's already said this is the last election, so maybe if they do well till 2025, he'll continue, but he most certainly will not, be go. It's hard to write off the JDU. A lot of people have written off the JDU. I wouldn't write them off completely because they do have their support in pockets. But a party that is very close to being written off is the Congress. They were reduced to 19 seats they fought 70 seats, which everyone thought was 20 seats too many. But if they don't do some course correction, they are going to lose significantly. And another player that we've seen in Bihar is the advent of Asaduddin Owaisi in the Simanchal region, which we'll come back to that in detail when we talk about Bihar and Bengal, but this borders Bengal. And, it has about a 35% Muslim population. And Asaduddin Owaisi has won 5 seats there. The other factor is the Chirag Paswan factor. I have a feeling that Chirag Paswan will come back to the NDA fold, but there is so much bad blood that has been spilled between Nitish Kumar and Chirag Paswan. I don't know if they'll work together. But the summary right now is that BJP and RJD are the poles. Tejasvi Yadav's party has not gone away. It has 75 seats. Yes, it has lost the election, but it has only lost 5 seats compared to last time. And last time they fought in alliance with Nitish Kumar. So this is a much better performance. And so they are the 2 poles. And now JDU brings that extra Z factor or X factor or something to the BJP. But I'm almost convinced that when they go to the Lok Sabha election, they will get LJP on board as an ally. So that is the new composition: BJP, JDU, LJP, and INC, RJD, and whoever else is left on their side.
Yeah, but see, this is the interesting part. Now, a lot of people said that RJD was the single largest party in this election. So, wo jeete. Wo technically, they are the winners. I don't buy that because in comparison to the number of seats RJD fought on last time with the Mahagathbandhan when they fought with Nitish, they fought many more seats. So, it's not like they did not get enough seats.
Right.
They got a lot more seats than last time. And their per capita game as such, per seat gain, is not as much in comparison to last time. So we will not really say that RJD was really that big a player, right? In that sense?
Yeah, so I mean, if to use a cricketing analogy, their strike rate wasn't as good as it was last time. So their support has dwindled. But last time Lalu was the face of the alliance. So what a lot of people were saying is the fact that they still managed to get a few seats without Lalu is significant. But I agree with you. It's not enough to call them a winner. So where the RJD might not have done as badly as people said they would, and by people I mean real analysts, not exit polls. We'll talk about exit polls a little later because everybody's been claiming victory that they got the exit polls right. But the thing is, a lot of people thought that with Lalu in jail, and this is probably RJD at his weakest. You had Raghuvansh Babu, who was a senior leader of RJD, who passed away, and a few months ago. So people thought that they are going to be sort of marginalized and stuff, but they did gain. Now, the one theory that has been doing the rounds is the popularity of Nitish Kumar had gone down. And many people, including Shwetank, who I did a Bihar podcast with on mine, said that whether the Nitish sort of are people going to give Nitish another chance? But where the people messed up was there was almost an attempt to reclassify Jungle Raj. That Jungle Raj did not exist and things like that. And every Bihari I speak to who's grown up in the 90s says this two very crucial words, that Jungle Raj is a lived experience. It's not something that we conjured out of thin air that you can see on data.
Just want to remind you, the professor in test disagrees with you.
Imagine my shock at that happening. So maybe next time I'm in Mumbai, I got to go meet up the professor and ask him what party disagrees with. But no, I mean, this is so bizarre. You can say, people can say, the journalists can say who are close to the Lalu regime, this is what we think about Bihar and stuff like that, and this is why we want Lalu to win. That's one debate. But by saying that something that people have actually lived through didn't even exist is strange. So even though people were mad at Nitish Kumar, they still have memories of the Jungle Raj, and they do vote for security. And this time it is said that a lot of women have voted for the JDU BJP alliance compared to the RJD Congress alliance, and that was the X factor.
Yeah, so actually, let me take in a super chat because it's actually a perfect segue into our discussion. So Uday has asked, if LJD hadn't split, would it have been that close? Now, I'll give you my view and then I'll take yours.
Sure.
So my whole take in this is not fair, if you ask me, because then I will also create a hypothetical where maybe Owaisi would not have fought. Then what would have happened? Because Owaisi ne bhi to bahut vote kate na. In that sense. But what do you think? If LJD would have been a part and all things remain the same, what would have happened?
So if LJP would have remained a part, the margins would have been a lot more for the BJP JDU. I think JDU would have done a little better. I don't know if BJP would have done significantly better than what they have, because LJP wasn't really contesting in every single seat that BJP was in. When it comes to Asaduddin Owaisi, a lot of people forget that JDU also fielded 11 Muslim candidates. So they also have some sort of a vote bank in the Muslim areas in Simanchal and so forth. So I think Asaduddin Owaisi didn't just take votes from Congress. He also took a little bit of votes from Nitish's party. So yes, the simple analysis is, it's a party that gets a very great strike rate in majority Muslim areas. So the rule of thumb is that seats should go to RJD and Congress. But I don't think that all the seats would have gone to RJD and Congress. I think it would have been a lot closer. And Asaduddin Owaisi's effect is only existing in 10 seats. Chirag Paswan's effect is probably in 25 to 30 seats. So that is, and it's more profound because he got about, in the seats he contested, I think 10 or 12% of the vote. So that is what was interesting. But again, if RJD and Congress cannot win this scenario, if LJP is anywhere close to the NDA, they are going to get wiped out. I mean, it's not even a contest. It's going to be like a 200 out of 240 or something like that for them.
So let's say, now I'm talking about 2025, right? That's when we'll have the next Bihar elections.
Right.
I'm pretty sure Nitish Kumarji is not going to be a player then. I mean, he himself said that in his speech, one of his campaign speeches, he said, "Aakhri baar lad raha hoon."
Right.
So if that is the case, I don't see the problem with this one-man driven political outfits, which is not the case with the BJP or to a large extent, no matter how much we hate them, the left parties.
Yeah.
These are ideology driven parties where somebody suddenly rises to the top and then they run it with that person for a while, and then that person goes into oblivion and somebody new comes out of. Now the problem with the JDU is, whether we like it or not, it is a Nitish Kumar driven party. It's not really, I mean, and if his kind of stock has gone down so much, do you see the LJP now becoming the junior partner in the alliance in the future, and BJP actually fighting with obviously the other two? I forgot the name of the allies. Pardon me.
The Hindustani Awami Morcha and Vikashshil Insan Party.
Yeah, Vikashshil Insan Party. Yeah. So maybe next time, I'm not saying JDU will be out of the picture, but JDU may not be a slightly bigger player than LJP. Do you see that happening in 2025?
Yes, I do actually. On a national level, certainly I see Well, I don't see JDU eclipsing the LJP. LGP eclipsing the JDU. I think JDU will still be a senior player in the alliance, but I don't see JDU fighting at an equal number of seats in the Lok Sabha as the BJP. This essentially was. This will not result into many changes in the assembly. Shayad 10-15 seat upar niche ho jaye, but in Lok Sabha, I do expect BJP to ask for 3 or 4 more Lok Sabha seats than the JDU. And this is for the first time since they went into alliance this will happen. Because a lot of people forget, but when the first alliance between BJP and JDU happened, BJP actually got more seats than JDU. In 2000 or something, and yet at that time it was the Samta Party. Nitish was projected the face, but Samta Party also had George Fernandez, and his and Atalji's sort of understanding was completely different than what we have right now.
Yeah, but right now, this is the confusion, right? Imagine a scenario where a person like... Now, politics is a very funny game. As someone, I mean, I speak from experience of working in 4 elections now in my life on the ground. I don't hide it. I worked with the BJP. I'm very open about my leanings. But my experience is that, yes, LJP has gone up this time, and I know what I'm talking about, that it could very well be a possibility that their stock goes down in the next 5 years. I mean, politics is very unpredictable. People drop you like this. People have a very short memory. But in that case, now let us go into the one player where nobody wants to talk about. Do you think the criticism, like Rajdeep was very critical of Asaduddin Owaisi after the election? Honestly, I don't understand why these people have a problem with. There is no one rational reason as to why Asaduddin Owaisi has no right to fight on different seats in different parts of India. I mean, why are these people so mad at him?
So Rajdeep, see, here's the thing. I don't think Rajdeep was critical. I think Rajdeep was unabashedly angry. I mean, how dare you go, and that mess up the Congress chances. I mean, I saw that clip. I tweeted out part of the clip where Asaduddin Owaisi gets a little mad. And I mean, guess it. So this, I'll take a small segue and then we'll come back to this. Remember how these people were praising the French president Emmanuel Macron when he came back to power, and now they hate him. And now they hate the French style of secularism. So my joke is that they love quoting the French philosopher Voltaire when it comes to free speech. They only have trouble following him. So ये वही है कि they love taking democracy, constitutional democracy and all that, but when someone uses the same means to fight elections but it ends up damaging their party, they get very angry about it. How dare you become democratic?
Yeah, so it's like that now. So it's like the discourse on free speech in India, right? I agree with your right to say, as long as you say what I want to hear.
Absolutely. You can.
So the moment you deviate, and that's typical of the left in India, the moment you deviate even a millimeter of my, cherished beliefs, then, I mean, look at the interview Fareed Zakaria recently had with Barkha Dutt. It was so nauseating. to listen to Fareed Zakaria telling Barkhadar that I am worried India is going in this direction. Oh bhai, tu गांजा मार रहा था जब इंदिरा गांधी थी. तू तो वृद्ध है ना.
नहीं, तब तो डैडी जी थे ना इंदिरा के गवर्नमेंट में, रफीक जकारिया.
तो फिर मतलब तू कर क्या रहा था? शर्म. और ये बंदे को शर्म नहीं आती बोलने में. वही तो मैं कह रहा हूँ. इसका पप्पा था इंडिया में जब इमरजेंसी हुई और बोलता है इंडिया अभी अथॉरिटेरियन. The history of India, the only real tryst with authoritarianism has been Indira Gandhi and the emergency. Yeah. Yes, we can say what happens in Bengal and what has happened in sporadic instances in different parts of India has authoritarian tendencies. But the real taste of authoritarianism in the history of independent India has only been under Indira Gandhi. And these people have the gall to say something like that. I don't know. I mean, who listens to them now?
Yeah,
or they keep talking amongst each other.
I think he was also serving with Indira Gandhi as a deputy in the Lok Sabha or something. He was a cabinet minister too under the Congress. So it's unbelievable, and it's fraud analysis, right? But Fareed Zakaria ka ek interesting hai, Kushal, and you'll remember this. When Narendra Modi came to US the first time, he gave Fareed Zakaria an interview. Now at that time, Fareed Zakaria, and because President Obama and Prime Minister Modi had a good sort of understanding, and Mr. Zakaria's, networks to the White House, that then White House was very well known. You had a very Mr. Different Zakaria. He, in fact, went and said this wonderful things about Prime Minister Modi on John Oliver's show, for God's sake. So, but yeah, now that has not happened. His contacts haven't materialized in India, and he has a book to sell. So, ये सब बकवास शुरू कर दिया बरखा के शो पे.
So this is what the point is, right? So for these people who are political analysts, they're not really political analysts. They are businessmen. They're doing a business. Yeah, their business is staying in the corridors of power. And to stay in the corridors of power, I have to peddle a certain narrative which my American papa and mummy, my career papa and mummy. There are real papa and mummy, and there are career papa and mummy. So my career papa and mummy, they need to listen to some things that will keep my job secure. So they change like this. But imagine, see, I don't blame the average American. The average American is going to be like, okay, brown guy on TV, looks Indian, has a semi-Indian accent even after living for so many years in America. I'm going to go with that person. Yeah. Nobody is going to correct Fareed Zakaria. And this is what annoys me like anything. I mean, in such a situation, kudos to a guy like Sagar and Jeti, at least on the Hill. Sagar, I mean, I heard Sagar on the Brown Pundits recently, and, Sagar was like, that's what goes off as Indian political analysis over here, and it's a load of rubbish. And kudos to Sagar. Sagar was honest. But coming back to Bihar, phase 1, so I was looking at the data, phase 1 BJP was walloped. Like, seriously walloped.
Completely.
What the hell happened in phase 2 and phase 3? What is your analysis?
A couple of things. I think I don't think they really realized Chirag Paswan's damage that it happened to a few seats. Second thing, I think the projection of Nitish Kumar was far more profound than it was in the first phase. I think they doubled down on Nitish Kumar. You had the letter that Prime Minister Modi wrote, you had the interviews that Amit Shah gave, and they shared platforms and stuff like that. And in general, I think there was a sense that this election is going to be a cakewalk for the BJP JDU. But in phase 1, it showed that it was more of a contest. So the cadre almost woke up from a little bit of a stupor. I wouldn't say the cadre, but maybe the local Bihar leadership, because there were a lot of, I was talking to people on the ground, and there were a lot of conflicting messages that were going out. People didn't know who was in charge or something. And it almost seemed that then the central BJP came in, took charge of the campaign, and then, they're like, okay, this is the leader, you go forward. So it's a bit of all of these factors, and you can see how minor the result was. I mean, ultimately it was what, 1 or 2 seats that made the difference. So because overall, I think maybe 5 seats, because even if you look at the difference between the Mahagathbandhan and NDA, it was, I think, 10 to 12 seats, and a swing of 5 or 6 seats either way could have basically swung the election. So it was that close.
Yeah, so another great question. I actually really love this question. So Akshat has asked this question. BJP won 72 while JDU won 43. How fair it is for the people of Bihar who chose BJP over JDU because Nitish doesn't have a good record in Bihar? That's a good question. Why did the BJP still go with Nitish Kumar as a chief minister in your view? जिस दिन एक बार ये क्या बीजेपी वाज बीइंग सलमान खान, एक बार हमने जवान दे दिया तो हमने ही पीछे हटेगा?
No, I think they were trying to not repeat Maharashtra.
I think so too.
Let me be very brutal. I think it was just that. And also, you have to understand Nitish Kumar is no Uddhav Thackeray. Nitish Kumar is actually popular as a person, right? So this is like, let me give you a scenario. Say in 2004, the BJP did worse compared to 1999, but somehow Vajpayee had 10 seats more than the Congress. I would have bet that a lot of allies who are not particularly fans of BJP would have said, no, we'll still hope for Vajpayee as the leader, because Vajpayee is, very popular leader on a personal level in terms of India. So it was almost that sort of thing. Second thing also, Nitish has already said that this is his last election. Agreed. Now, everyone, whatever people say in politics, you should always take it with a pinch of salt, especially what Nitish Kumar says, because he is known to have flipped every 5-10 years. But I think the difference this time is that the BJP is confident that a weaker Nitish and a stronger BJP, they're playing the long game. अभी लड़के कोई फायदा नहीं है. If you manage to piss off Nitish Kumar or the JDU cadre, they are going to, what if, there are 2/3 MLAs. And let's not forget, the majority of the BJP-JDU alliance hinges on the 9 seats or the 8 seats provided by the allies. The Hindustani Awami Morcha Secular, led by Jitanram Manji, and the Vikashshil Insan Party. If those 8 seats were to go anywhere, so, that could be a problem. So I don't think they want to rock that boat also. That is why they have stuck with Nitish.
I have to give it to the person who named this political outfit Vikashshil Insan Party. I mean, shout out to them. What a name.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, हम विकासशील भी हैं और हम इंसान भी हैं. बोलो अभी क्या करोगे?
Yeah. No, and here is the thing. Their story is fantastic. Mukesh Sahani is the leader. I think they belong to the Malla caste, right? The same caste as Phulan Devi, right? And Phulan Devi was perceived to be, at that time, she was taking on the upper caste feudal landlords and stuff like that. And here you have a what Lalu paraded as a potentially like upper caste with EBC, OBC alliance, and a party that is based in the same, tribes as Phulan Devi or something was. I mean, she was going to say that is actually doing an alliance with the BJP and succeeding. They did an alliance with the UPA and did not succeed. And traditionally, the Mallas have voted towards for the BJP since 1990s. So it's a fascinating story how he's come up. It's absolutely amazing.
Now to everybody's favorite political outfit in the entire country, the enigma. I mean, there is the Midas touch and then there is the Congress touch. मतलब कांग्रेस इस समय एक ऐसी पनौती है कि वो जिसको भी जाके हाथ लगाती है. जैसे तुझे याद है हम लोग बचपन में खेलते थे कैरम, और जब भी शॉट ओपोनेंट का लगता था उसके पहले हम लोग नश्तर मारते थे. नश्तर मारते थे. कांग्रेस एक पॉलिटिकल नश्तर है. वो जिसको हाथ लगाता है उसका काम तमाम हो जाता है. कांग्रेस के बारे में क्या किया जाए अभी?
So Congress का बड़ा interesting scene है. They got 90. I was just looking up the Congress vote share on my phone, and Congress got 19 seats out of 70. And उनको 50 से ज्यादा क्यों दिया? Last time also they won, I'm just looking it up. Last time they won 40 seats. They contested in 40 and they won 27. This time they contested in 70 and won 19. So it was a complete wipeout, और वो भी RJD के दम पे थोड़ी बहुत जीत गए. But here is the thing. I think what Congress suffers from the most is lack of a leader. See, you are in Maharashtra, Kushal, and you probably know this better than I do. The Congress in Maharashtra has some very good satraps, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
And Congress has many regional leaders. It depends on the area. And you know what the beauty of Maharashtra is? Maharashtra, there is no regional leader in one party. Maharashtra has regional leaders cutting across parties.
Yeah, exactly.
You have good, strong regional leaders in Congress in Maharashtra. Then NCP has strong leaders in Maharashtra. Then BJP of Maharashtra too. See, now Khadse ji has gone into NCP, but Khadse ji was a big leader in Maharashtra. Leave Khadse ji. Take someone like Sudhir Bhau Mungatiwar. A huge leader in Maharashtra. Big leader in Maharashtra. Munde ji was a big leader in Maharashtra. Pramod Mahajan ji was a big leader in Maharashtra. Then you have others in the Congress and the NCP. And even in Shiva Sena, for that matter, they also had some leaders, although now Shiv Sena has become pretty much, I'm talking about the days of Anandige Thakur and stuff like that. Anandige Thakur was a big leader.
Absolutely.
In Thane, people don't realize that people used to have photos of Anandige Thakur in their house. Now, the thing with the Congress is that, see, I had written a tweet that there is only one thing on which both BJP and Congress totally agree on. And that is that Rahul Gandhi should be the president of the Congress party. That, every day BJP and Congress get up and the sycophants in the Congress and the leaders of the BJP rose do only one puja. Hey Bhagwan, isko president banaye rakhna. जब तक ये प्रेसिडेंट रहेगा हमारी नैया पार होती रहेगी. बीजेपी तो कभी नहीं बोलेगी कि कांग्रेस में से राहुल गांधी हटे. But on a serious level, who will get away with so many blunders other than Rahul Gandhi?
No one can. And here is the thing, right? I was looking at statistics and that what was the last election that Rahul Gandhi won? And I really couldn't come up with one. I mean, I was like, because there has been no election that they won on the back of Rahul Gandhi. There are two parts. One is Jharkhand. What you saw in Jharkhand, where the UPA did win because Congress actually gave the space to ally Hemant Soren. But also, BJP's government in Jharkhand wasn't as popular as Nitish's government was in Bihar. Second thing is, Shekhar Gupta actually had this wonderful analogy that Congress is like a boxer who punches above his weight to take its own partner down rather than the opponent. So, which I don't think. And Veer Sanghvi had a better quote where he said that Congress is like that old uncle who has had more than 3 packs to drink in a party and just doesn't want to leave the party. And the nephews are saying, Chacha ji bas ho gaya, ab chale jao, bahut pee liya aapne. So, and both of them have seen Congress from far closer quarters than you or I have. So if they are saying it, I would take it with a very, very serious sort of thing. But let's look at the future contours of the Bihar. Like for the years, the only seat that Congress would win, would even contest it was Sasaram and this Katihar, where Tariq Anwar, now who was in NCP first and now is in Congress again in the Simanchal region, would win. And the other seats, they were in contest only because RJD and Meherban hoke 2-3 de deti thi unko. What this tells you is that in the politics of Bihar, Congress is now being slowly sort of consigned to the fate that they were in UP. Last election gave them a glimmer of hope that they can be sort of a Ramvilas Paswan type player where they fight 40 seats and get 25-30 and enough to get like about 4 or 5 cabinet ministers. So, but the arrogance is such that how can a national party like the Congress only get 25 seats, 40 seats, 50 seats? Humko Ramvilas Paswan type party hai this. So that arrogance is what is killing the Congress. And the refusal to see it when it's there right in their face.
Yeah, but then what do you tell the people who say that the Congress situation is so messed up that they know they can't win with Rahul Gandhi and they also know they can't hold the party together without the Gandhis?
So there is a bit of both, right? It almost not only does Rahul Gandhi have to go, he almost has to ultimately endorse whoever the next president is. Like, I always love how people announce their decisions in India. They always say, by unanimous consent, we have decided that so-and-so is going to be the leader of our party. Nobody, you did not decide by unanimous consent. The dissenting voices were told, chup paith ke side mein chale jao, right? Because in India, we don't have that concept that someone can win a democratic election within their party 60-40 and be the face of the party, like primaries are there in US. The only thing close to a primary we had was Narendra Modi in 2013 when he actually went from June through September and convinced everyone why he should be the face of the party. So he went from being named the campaign chief to the projected face of the party for the prime minister. So that was sort of a unofficial primary, right? So Rahul Gandhi almost has to fight an official primary, make sure that whoever the guy wins, he comes on a stage and says that official support and sort of recede to the background and still continue to fight in Lok Sabha. Only then will the Congress have a fighting chance, because then they'll see that the Gandhis are supporting people. If people see that the Gandhis are sabotaging the current president, or being like what Sitaram Kesri was in the 90s to the Congress, Congress is going to get wiped out, completely wiped out, because they just have no future.
Yeah, but what do you think about this latest? ये पता नहीं अभी कपिल सिब्बल साहब ने बीच में बोल दिया था, फिर शशि थरूर जी अपने एकदम लटका झटका हिंदी इंग्लिश में बोलते हैं, जो वो हमेशा आते हैं बीच में ऐसे ऐसे बाल ऐसे करके अपने बात करके चले जाते हैं वो. So what do you make of it? Do you see any chance in the future where they actually try to actually get rid of the Gandhis? Do you think that's going to happen?
No, see, Shashi Tharoor kya karega yaar? Shashi Tharoor is very popular in TV studios. He's not like Madhavrao Sindhya. They think that Shashi Tharoor is a replacement of Madhavrao Sindhya, forgetting how popular he was in Madhya Pradesh, right? He's not a replacement for Shashi Tharoor is a Delhi politician who also wins in Thiruvananthapuram, right? So, I don't think he's a legitimate. Yes, he can be one of the speakers in the Lok Sabha or the Vidhan Sabha because he's a phenomenal orator in English, right? And he can say, he can articulate some points of a debate or something. But the leader almost has to be a state leader who is given sort of a national sort of thing. Someone like I hate to use old examples, but someone like a Kamraj or someone like that, right? Who has that stature कि nationally भी वो 2-3 लोगों को चुप बैठा सकता है, and then can go and win them elections also. And it almost has to be, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to people who do not speak Hindi, but it has to be a Hindi speaking leader, because in the Hindi belt of UP, Bihar, Himachal, right now Himachal also Congress is going down. Madhya Pradesh also, after Kamal Nath ne last election kuch kar diya, but now with the updated contours, BJP is going to come back massively in Madhya Pradesh. They need a leader Rajasthan who connects to all these places also.
Yeah, so I want to discuss the by-elections too, but there are a couple of more questions that I want to talk about Bihar. Mm-hmm. So one last question from my end, and then I want to take the super chat up.
Yeah.
The left parties have made a comeback. Nothing worries me more when I see the left, like proper communists, making a comeback.
Right.
And I say this as a person. I'm a lifelong hater of Congress party. But there is nothing in my life that I hate more than the communists. Like I hate them with a passion like anything else.
You and me both.
Yes. So I get very worried when I see these many number of seats going to the left parties. Why do you think that happened?
So the left, the CPI-ML, or the Maoist Leninist Liberation is what they call themselves, does have some sort of a presence in Bihar. They do have like about they would win 2 or 3 MLAs or something like that, but this time for the first time, and they were sworn enemies of Lalu Prasad Yadav. Like the RJD Karyakartas, one of the first cases where against RJD were what they did to the left leaders. This time, Adnar Tejasvi, he brought them back into the alliance. So thoda alliance ka fayda tha, thoda to base unka tha hi ki they would get some sort of votes in 5-6 MLAs. But I think this time Tejasvi was more magnanimous than you would expect him to be, and ended up giving them sort of more seats than they deserved. And एक चीज तो हम left का बोल ही सकते जो कांग्रेस में नहीं है is their cadre. And as much as we hate them, they are a cadre-based party. So their ground game was on point in their seats, and that's what resulted in them getting about 14 or 15 seats. So we cannot completely overrule that. Even when they were fighting alone, they were getting 2-3% of the vote, or the seats they were fighting, they were getting like 15-20% of the vote. So अगर आपके पास वो base है और consistent है, तो उसपे आप additional अगर वो the Muslim Yadav combination का तड़का या वो सब लगा दे, that results into a windfall then for you.
True. So one more question about Bihar. So Tanmay Kulkarni has asked this question. What do you think of the first deputy CM of Bihar, Srimati Renu Devi? I think what he's trying to say is, what do you think of the decision to give her the deputy CM seat and Sushil Modi ji getting a thenga, I guess?
So I think Sushil Modi ji has been accommodated in the sort of, Renu Devi was the vice president of BJP Bihar, and I was just looking which like what ministry she had before in the first Nitish Kumar government. She had the Ministry of Sports Art, so she was a sort of a member of the cabinet with Nitish Kumar. I think it's a good step. I think it's a very interesting step also because of where she comes from, the West Champaran region. That is a region where BJP has done typically particularly well, even during the last elections and so forth. Sushil Modi, I think, was also seen to be very close to Nitish Kumar. So this was sort of to put two deputy CMs is interesting, to almost have a second rung of leadership developing below Nitish Kumar. I think sorry, हाँ,
it's like UP, right? UP में भी तीन deputy CM जैसे है ना?
हाँ, पर UP में minister भी BJP के and you but the difference is also here, it's almost used as a foil for Nitish Kumar also, I think. And another thing you can sort of understand is they do need some sort of good, talented state ministers going to the center, and Sushil Modi would be a fantastic minister to do that. So that he's going to the center is a if he is taken in the center, I think that would be a good step. But I think it's majorly done to provide a foil to Nitish Kumar and also groom a second rung of BJP leadership in the state, because all these people are between 55 and 65, which is not particularly young, but it also means that they have at least 2 elections left in them.
True. I think I'm more on your side. I think Sushil Modi would make a great central government minister. Right. I think we need to get some ministers in the center.
Yeah.
I think we have a paucity of talent in the center. Yes, I do believe that. People may not like what they're hearing right now. So another good couple of questions. I think both Sriram and Tanmay have kind of asked the same question. So I'm going to mix it and ask you, what effect are these Bihar elections going to have, if any, on the West Bengal and other big elections that are coming up? Because I'll tell you what was going to happen. If BJP would not have formed the government, they would have pummeled the BJP in the TV studio and said, "Dekhna abhi Bengal mein ye hoga, dekhna abhi idhar ye hone wala hai, dekhna idhar abhi wo hone wala hai." But now that the BJP has formed the government along with Nitish Kumar, do you think it is really going to have any effect whatsoever on Bengal? And do you think BJP has a chance in Bengal anyways, irrespective of what happens?
I think BJP has a good chance in Bengal. I see they are in the fight right now. 6 months before, people can do opinion polls and all that and say that, oh, Mamta is still ahead and stuff, because always you never get an accurate picture. If an incumbent is being challenged by a strong challenger in an organized manner, then you'll find the wo slow heat hai. It will build up, and in the last 2 or 3 months there'll be a very significant push forward with rallies and things like that. So that's when you get the incumbent swing vote. But the fact that they got 18 seats last time tells me a very interesting thing, that they are in the race. One thing that BJP has to do, what they usually haven't been doing much in every election, they have been doing on and off, they have to project a face for Bengal. Even if they think that face might lose out to Mamata Banerjee, and that needn't be a CM face, that could be a chief of campaigners, campaign committee, because you cannot have just 10 faces leading the campaign and saying that, ek baar ho jayega and High Command will decide who will be the CM of Bengal.
Yeah, but then who is that face? Dilip Ghosh? Or who is that recently we had? So obviously Mukul Roy has been obviously a part of BJP, so he's a big leader. But abhi recently kaun the? Main naam yaar, I'm very bad with names. Recently someone from Mamta's close coterie has kind of made a statement, and I think he is going to the BJP too, right?
I'm not familiar, but I mean, when you say the name, probably yahan bhi batti hogi. Please, guys, whoever is watching the stream, if you guys remember the name, write that in the comments.
Yeah, because I'm so bad with names. Recently मैंने पढ़ा था उसके बारे में. So there is some Bihari in the live comments. Dr. Shreyas Lal has said, I am from Bihar. I have to read this. It's a super chat. I'm from Bihar, and you have no idea how much Sushil Modi is hated even by hardcore BJP supporters. You can check his social media. He talks nonsense. I don't know, Dr. Shreyas Lal, if you can judge the mood of the people by what social media says, with due respect.
No, but I'm not going even into that. I mean, that could be true, that could not be true. But the bottom line is, the reason why he was not given. See, if the BJP wanted me to make him a deputy CM, I hate to say it, they would have made him anyways. Like, nothing would have stopped them. But I think the reason was to A, I think, get him in the center, and B, sort of have a check to Nitish Kumar by someone not who he works so closely with. So the dream team has been split, so to speak, in Bihar. So interesting part. See, first deputy CM was always shown given to, or deputy PM or deputy CM, or basically second in command was someone who couldn't be the first CM. But Nitish and Sushil Modi almost have had some sort of a very a sort of a bromance, like a very good cordial working relationship and things like that. So this time I think it will be slightly more adversarial than what it was before.
So by the way, we do have the names for Bengal. I think it's Suvendu Adhikari and Rajiv Banerjee.
Yes, there we go.
So I think it was Suvendu Adhikari. He is thinking of switching from TMC to BJP. So thanks a lot. See, this is the beauty of live chats. They give you the answers instantly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's now.
People watching us are smarter than us, Kushal. We should be happy about that.
See, as long as they give us the answers, I'm fine with it. So now let's go into the bipole results, because let me tell you, between you and I, now that we are talking very openly, I was worried about the bipole results more than Bihar. Because Bihar, though, I had not assumed that BJP was going to do well at all.
Yeah.
But bipole, I was really worried because two states I was worried about. I'll tell you why. Gujarat, because I don't know, Gujarat mein last elections mein BJP ke thodi seatein kam ho gayi thi, so I was really worried. And Madhya Pradesh, because जो भी है जुगाड़ करके अभी सरकार बनाई है, तो डर लग रहा था कि भाई अभी क्या होगा इन सीटों में. So what is your assessment of the overall results of the bipoles?
If there were two other people who were as happy as Bihar BJP that day, that would be a certain guy called Vijay Rupani and then Shivraj Singh Chauhan. No doubt about that. These were 8 seats held by the Congress in Gujarat, and a few of them were strongholds, right? And a lot of people forget the face of the Congress in Gujarat for these 8 seats was Hardik Patel. So the fact that they lost, and they lost so big, right? Because you're talking about, like, agar aap baat kare harne ki, Congress lost by 20% vote margin. 20%. I mean, it's unbelievable in the bipoles. Now, BJP has traditionally done well in bipoles, but even the most optimistic person was expecting a 6-2 or a 7-1 result out of 8, or even a 5-3, because they were, Morbi seats which were a hotbed of the Patel movement, the Pass Andolan, he did well. So that, and then in Madhya Pradesh, I think they got 18 or 19 out of 28, if I'm not mistaken. So that was a good result for them. But another thing which is not being talked about are the 2 wins in Karnataka, where they won the 2 seats and solidified their position.
Yes.
And the 1 seat in Telangana, Dubaka, where Telangana, it was expected that TRS would sweep. They had fielded the widow of the existing Dubaka MLA, but the BJP guy who had been working in the seat for 10 years actually ended up winning that seat by 10,000 votes. So if the Bihar was the emergence of BJP as an alternative to RJD on a pan-state level, the bipoles was almost a solidification of the sort of the clout of the BJP at the national level.
Yeah, that's true. So just one question on Bihar. Arindrajit, so not on Bihar, sorry, on Bengal. So Arindrajit asked, what do you think will change in Bengal with the overtly communist mindset, even if BJP wins? So what he's saying is, it doesn't matter who comes in power. The raison d'etre of Bengal, the essence of Bengal is Marxwadi. So do you think that will change? I think it will, but I want to know your views.
It will. I don't think that is personally the case. It's just that has been sort of the lazy go-to political thing of the Bengali politicians, that Mamata Banerjee too did this whole Singur and Nandigram nonsense, which prompted Tata to move from Bengal to Gujarat. I think the ultimate thing is, it has to be drilled in that the politics of communism is sort of doesn't give you the votes. Agar ek baar ghus gaya wo political parties mein, they'll move away. I'll give you an example. If you remember, in 1997, Arundhati Roy, after she won the Booker Prize of the God of Small Things, donated, if mostly it was that book, I think she donated the money she got to the Sardar Sarovar project. And Medha Patkar was, leading the thing. And then in 2006, Amir Khan also sat on this Sardar Sarovar Andolan. Today, can any party in Gujarat be against the Sardar Sarovar Dam? I don't think so. Right? The Sardar Sarovar, the anti-Sardar Sarovar movement was completely led by the global left and the pan left in India and all that, things like that. And if you think about it, 1.5 saal pehle, they were saying the same nonsense about the Statue of Unity. Now the figures are in and the tourism numbers are phenomenal. So everyone has stopped talking about it.
See, stop hurting the sentiments of Dhruv Rathi. See, यही तेरी problem है. तो Dhruv Rathi की intellectual analysis को तू ऐसे उसका दिल तोड़ता ना, यही तो मुझे तेरी बात
मेरी problem उन लोगों से जो ध्रुव राठी को intellectual बोलते हैं. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So Sardar Sarovar Dam के बारे में, can you be a party in Gujarat and be against Sardar Sarovar Dam, a serious party? No, you cannot. So ultimately, that politics changed in the 90s in Gujarat. I mean, state level and things like that. So that will change in Bengal also.
Yeah, I agree. This is a very important question. I'm going to share it on the screen. Uday has asked, given that around 35 to 40% of West Bengal population is now Muslim, I don't know if it's 35 to 40%, I think it's 27%. Would Owaisi's participation in the Bengal elections have a deep impact? Can I say this for the record? I really love the idea that Owaisi is going to fight in Bengal.
No, also it busts this whole myth of Congress being this pan-secular party. Congress in Bengal, in the northern part, it wins because it actually polarizes on Hindu-Muslim lines. That is why a lot of them were fed up of the Congress. In the Malda belt and the Dinajpur belt and so Congress had left fought in alliance, and I think Congress won 4 Lok Sabha seats also in I don't know if it was this time or the last time, but Congress actually didn't do as badly as the left did in West Bengal. That is because so again, if Owaisi comes over here, because Congress has projected itself as the face of the Bengali Muslims in those areas and hasn't done jack shit for anyone. So if Owaisi comes, he will get those votes because they'll say, "Bhai, 25 saal se aapne kiya kya hai? 30 saal se aapne kiya kya hai? We've been, reposing our faith in you." And that is what the Congress doesn't like, and that is what the journalists in Delhi don't like.
You know what ironically is happening in India at an electoral level is that, see, you could never have had a Hindu consolidation until you had the lower caste vote movement towards the BJP. Let's just be blatantly honest about it. Right. So all these people who get the reason they get so scared about the rise of BJP is that the rise of BJP is basically the assertion of the lower caste on Indian politics finally. The lower caste could never assert itself on the polity of India. They did in the way of Kanshiram. They did in the way of the old school, Yadav politics. But that really was not an assertion beyond, say, the local level. To get onto the national level, the way, and I'm not complaining, I'm actually extremely happy about it, that, even within the Hindu Samaj, 70% of the Hindu Samaj is lower caste. So the representation of a proper Hindu party, let's assume BJP is a Hindu party. I don't believe it is, but let's assume, for argument's sake, it should have a significant representation of the lower caste. And the consolidation of the lower caste towards BJP is, to me, the story of Modi 2.0. From 2019 onwards till now, there is a significant, I think eventually it's going to have a scene where the Jatavs also vote for BJP. But the non-Jatav consolidation for the BJP is something that just has blown me away. And on the same time, the splintering of the Muslim vote. It is clear that the Muslim vote slowly but surely is splintering. There is a slowly creeping, at least I believe in the Muslim female vote bank, where they are preferring BJP now. You may say what you want to say, but thoda sa ho raha hai. I think it's happening. And the rise of Owaisi is splitting the Muslim vote in India, where the Muslims are saying, boss, तुमने हमको बेवकूफ बनाया इतने साल, हम इसके साथ जा रहे हैं. And I think Muslims have democratic right to do that. To insult Muslims for exercising their democratic right is the most condescending thing I've ever heard from the left wing in India. What do you think? You're muted, Adit. You're muted.
Sorry. It's almost like what I see in US, where if you have African Americans who vote for the Republicans, or Latinos, which in this time voted for Republicans, they'll be like, Acha, let's not call them Latinos, let's call them Cuban Americans. Then let's not call them this. Why did this happen? Right? Because you pander. When you pander to a community and don't actually do anything to benefit them, they are going to see through the bullshit and say that, bhai, you have pandered, but you don't do anything concrete. At least people are giving us a voice or giving us representation. And this is not just Owaisi is not just rising in Bengal and Bihar. In Maharashtra, even 3 MLA seats. So I have a very controversial opinion about this, and people that if Owaisi plays his cards right, in areas with significant Muslim population, he could end up being a Mayawati-like figure. Where Mayawati was actually, abhi is bar bhi dekho, in Bihar, Mayawati has got 1 or 2 MLAs from BSP. In Madhya Pradesh, she would get like 5-6 MLAs. So I don't think Owaisi would be on that scale, but that is what he's trying to do. That if you are in a state and you want the Muslims of the state to vote for you, you have to get my guys on board, or you have to talk about issues. Fair enough, that's his democratic right.
Yeah, and do you think Owaisi is the next Jinnah?
See, I don't agree with his politics, right? I don't agree with his politics or anything. He does fuel a lot of flames that are not there. But the part is, one has to analyze is, why the hell are people still voting for him? Right? If they're still voting for him, you got to go out and bust his politics. How you do that? If you ensure that by making sure he loses every election? Do you ensure that by making sure he's accountable for his statements? Do you ensure by that he doesn't get away with the rubbish he's saying? Right? But एक दो चीज होती है, एक होती है personal opinion और दूसरा होता है political analysis. If I give my political analysis, he's here to stay, boss, because he is making dents in the votes. दूसरा, and again I keep saying this, his fluency in Hindi. He is making inroads into the part where, because Owaisi can't speak Bangla, he can't speak Marathi the same way, right? Maybe his local MLAs can, but that is also, you have to understand where the language sort of divide, and so to speak. But ultimately, I think to defeat Owaisi on both sides, if BJP wants to defeat Owaisi, they will have to offer a counter, which BJP is doing, offering a counter narrative saying that he is almost indulging in a very sectarian politics. What Congress is saying is, do your sectarian politics, but do it in alliance with us. That is what I hate even more. That you are not opposing Owaisi's sectarian politics. You only do that when he defeats you.
Somebody has asked this question. I think the question information is wrong here. Sasidharan has asked, how could Owaisi being a Shia and a South Indian create so much clout across India? Sasidharan, I think he's a Sunni.
No, I don't think so. No, I think he's right. He's a Shia.
He's a Shia? नहीं यार, रजाकार शिया थोड़ी ना थे, रजाकार तो सुन्नी थे.
That is what I had read somewhere as well. I wouldn't know more, but
no, I think he's. Anyways, so I mean, see, to answer this question, Sasidharan, it's a very simple answer. I think Owaisi speaks the language of Islam.
Yeah,
and he practices soft Islamism, so that has an appeal pan-India. So we may not like it. That's just the reality of life. So another question, Siddharthi, more than a question, I think it's a query. Have you guys heard of someone called Lala who was arrested or perhaps absconding? He was the highest donor to the current ruling dispensation in Bengal.
Have you heard of? No, I have not.
I've not either. So we're almost touching the hour mark, and I know I'm conscious of your time. So before we go, so if you were to say in the next elections, do you think BJP in Bihar, this is my passing question to you before we wrap things up. Next time in
I
Bihar,
have a few minutes so I can talk. Yeah, no problem.
Oh, so you can, because I was like,
I can talk for another 15-20 minutes or something. If
all right, then let's continue with a little bit more. Then let's start with this. In Bihar next time, do you think BJP should go with a chief minister's face instead of any other party?
I don't care which state it is. I think you should always go with the face, unless and until you are a junior ally in any formation. This time they went with Nitish Kumar. Next time, if the BJP does better in the Lok Sabha than JDU, I think it should be a BJP face that should be a chief minister. But I think people in India, this whole nonsense about elected MLAs decide who the leader of the party is all bakwas. Ultimately, you need one person to run the campaign. Now, I understand you didn't do that in UP in 2017 because the fact that there are so many factions, and it was almost a spillover of the 2014 elections. But now that Narendra Modi has won the election twice, I think in any state they should go with the projected face.
So I also wanted to ask you a question. I know Bengal, everybody talks about Bengal, but before people get mad at me and say, as usual, Kushal, you have started to ignore Southern India because you guys are anti-South India, I would like to let me get right into South India now. Tamil Nadu.
So there is a rava dosa that is being prepared for breakfast right now for me. If I alienate South India, that will eliminate 50% of my food preferences.
Yeah. So let's talk about Tamil Nadu now.
Yes.
Post Jayalalitha, do you see any hope for AIMIM?
No, it's very hard to see, right? I mean, look at this. Jayalalitha has been gone for 4 years, I think now, almost. 2016 is when she came back to power, and then passed away tragically just a few months after. And Palanisamy and O Paneerselvam are absolutely nowhere. See, now AIADMK does have some sort of a backing in a few seats, right? They have a base. But I personally thought that with Jayalalitha Khan, this was BJP's time to push forward the advantage, get a leader, and they just have not been able to do it. In the Lok Sabha, they got 0 seats in Tamil Nadu, and even people like an M. Thambidurai or something, senior ADMK faces, I thought maybe they would win, like they would get a few seats here and there, but that didn't happen unless and until they completely conjured this weird coalition with Vijay Kant and VCK, all these parties that are on the fringe place, because Tamil Nadu has a lot of fringe parties, like with 4 or 5% of the votes. You have the PMK, which was in the NDA, the Dr. Ramados's party, which is amongst the Vanniyars. So all these parties, if they come together, they could win a few MLAs, but I just don't think that they have that thrust at the center that the whole alliance could revolve around. Who is that face? And they have to find a face in 6 months, because they cannot let someone like a Kamal Hassan get into an opposition sort of face in Tamil Nadu, because then you're looking at a party which is left and far left, right? I'm not particularly fond, like AIADMK has played both sides before also, but we can at least say that AIADMK is not Kamal Hassan. It's not far left.
Yeah, it's not anti-India. It's not anti-India.
So if you have to, for the sake of Tamil Nadu, they have to sort of provide an alternative. How they do this, ADMK cadre they need a leader, and they almost need to get out of the shadow of Jayalalitha. It's been 4 years after, she can be a face. You did not see BJP after Vajpayee retired going with cutout posters of Vajpayee 6 feet and the leader standing right next to it and giving speeches, right? Ab wo nahi ho sakta. I know why they did it. I know they might do it for one more election next year, but after the next election it has to go, otherwise ADMK will be finished.
Well, do you think Rajnikant will have any factor in the election?
For that, he has to take a position.
Yeah, the man doesn't take a position. He's like all over the place, right?
Yeah, he's like what Arun Shourie used to call rationalists. Dono sides se argue karta hai. Sadly, Arun Shourie also argues from 2 sides these days. But before, when he argued from one side, he would say, beware of nationalists who can justify either side. But but yeah, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this remark. But it is what it is. It's the truth, guys. That's why it hurts, right? But Rajnikant, that's my thing. If Rajnikant takes a position, he could be a factor. But Hamesha, he there is this expression in the West Wing, right? That you said you dangled the feet. You didn't jump in. You need politics. You can't just dangle your feet and decide. You have to jump in.
Yeah, so a couple of more elections. So April and May, we have a lot of elections, right? So we've covered West Bengal. We just spoke about Tamil Nadu, Puducherry. To theek hai, it's fine, whatever. But two more main states. One is Kerala.
Yes.
And one is Assam, right? Assam also, we have an election coming up. So let's start with Kerala. Do you think the Congress is coming in Kerala?
Again, Kerala has this revolving door policy, na?
Yeah.
Ek aayega, ek jayega. So they have a chance in Kerala, and that is one place where Congress has not completely eroded. Because again, they have a few leaders like Satraps, Ramesh Chenithala, Umen Chandi, all these people. They do have a chance.
And Rahul Gandhi does not have his Panauti factor over there. Uski pahunch nahi udhar. They don't understand what he says.
Rahul ji, that is why they made him a sitting MP.
Yes.
Rahul, I think Congress does have a chance in Kerala. It also depends on how much of a impact BJP makes, because if they end up getting 10-12% of the vote, then you are looking at BJP playing a position of like a third party in many seats. Last time they got one MLA. I think they should get more than a few MLAs, but they also have to honestly now BJP has to give up the idea that they're going to form a government in Kerala, but actually decide on getting like 20 or 25 MLAs elected, because only then you can form a critical mass, causing enough headache because Kerala only has 140 MLAs, right? So if you have 20 or 25, that's like a seventh of the assembly. You are actually then forming a critical mass to make sure that the issues that you want to be highlighted are highlighted.
Yeah, but that's my problem with the BJP when it comes to its South Indian politics, other than Karnataka, which it's kind of, has a hold on. Let's be very clear. BJP's South Indian political strategy is abysmal.
Yeah, very abysmal.
It's like, what the hell are they doing there? I don't get it sometimes.
So, okay. We need to sort of split it. I said abysmal, but not everywhere. Tamil Nadu, yes. Kerala, maybe. Karnataka, I think they've got it in order. And Telangana, they have certainly done they have a great strategy. So the two, it's a split. I think Karnataka and Telangana, they're doing well. Andhra, I'm not so sure because they are, with Jaga and with Chandrababu Naidu, but Kerala, they really need to get it together. Because Kerala gave you a chance in 2014 with 10-12% of the vote. There was no reason why they went down in 2016. The language is going to be a barrier where Narendra Modi is not going to be the same campaigner as he was in say in Bihar and things like that. So you will have to invest in local faces, and you will have to. Kumanamam Rajasekaran, I think, was a governor or something, and he was brought back to fight an MLA election or MP election in 2019. So they need a face, right? They need one face that you give them 3-4 years and go. But I still think BJP is going to be a significant factor in terms of vote percentages. We have to convert that into seats. Otherwise, agar seats nahi milegi India mein, you're nothing. It's going to go away because Narendra Modi is not going to be the eternal leader of the BJP. So if they keep on getting 10 to 12% of the vote, one day when he does retire as the prime minister, BJP is going to lose all those momentum with them. So they need to convert that into seats and local.
True. Seats. So Tanmay has asked this question. Do you think Congress has done a good job for Kerala? It is the best performing state in all social indices in the country.
See that now. Yeah, here is the thing. On some social indices, I might agree, but the data that we get is so skewed. Now, on revenue generation, Kerala has been lagging behind. A lot of them come from remittances from UA. Have they created any industries in Kerala? Have they created, because just social indicators are not, thing. Just because the whole state has free dental care, when, you want other states to have it too, maybe they have it too. That isn't just the only barometer I would judge a state.
I agree.
By. Yeah, so I think it's a bit of both. Maybe there are a few social indices on literacy and all that they have done better, but there are many social indices where a lot might have to be left to be desired. But maybe then, see, sorry, Kushal, I didn't mean to interrupt, but one thing needs to happen. Maybe there needs to be a white paper written on this, and not by a central government or an ideological institution, that what social indices do matter in India and which state sort of is coming up. The only thing we had is a few government affiliated agencies or a few ideological agencies, or India Today, jab unka dil chahe, wo mood of the nation, state of states, wo sab bakwas poll karte rehte hain, all that.
Yeah, see, has Kerala done better on social indices than other people in India in terms of states in India? Yes. Can we trust Kerala's data? No, because look at what the famed Kerala COVID model was. So the less we say, the better off it is. I think you hit the nail on the head when you basically pointed out that Kerala's model is, I will send people to Gulf, get money from Gulf, and that's about it. So I think that Gulf money is what is running Kerala. We have to be very careful. But yes, I think the social welfare programs in Kerala, I've had these conversations on and off the record with Padma Pillai. She's from Kerala. Right. And Padma has said that, yes, it's a mixed bag. It's a good and bad both. Yeah. So before we wrap things up, I want to do the last state that we have another election coming up. Assam, BJP coming back again. What do you think?
Yeah, more likely than not. I think I think BJP's popularity in Assam is there. The good thing, again, that's what I say, young leaders. They invested in a young leader, and they have a terrific campaigner and manager in Himanta Biswa Sharma. So you have that both, who is pretty much running the entire Northeast campaign for the BJP. He's a cabinet minister in Assam, but he flies around. I think he's the convener of the NEDA, which is the National or the Northeast Democratic Alliance or something like that. I think what in Assam the major factor is also that Congress has not moved beyond the Gogoi family. So after the Gogoi family and the Sushmita Dev's father, whoever, that family, they have these satraps in Assam also that they have not looked beyond. But Assam is one state where if you see Owaisi's name is not being taken, because they already have an Owaisi in Badruddin Ajmal, who makes even more sort of controversial statements than Owaisi. And that is in the Dhubri region where he wins the MP. And that's exactly what has happened to Owaisi also. But you don't see Congress taking on Badruddin Ajmal the same way they take on Owaisi, right? So again, the same things were said about Ajmal also. And I detest both of their politics. But what do? They are there to stay. And if you have to weed out the politics, you can't just do it by banning the parties. You have to almost, show the people what kind of frauds are being perpetrated. And the Congress way of saying that as long as you're with us in the alliance, we'll tolerate you is not going to work.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. See, here's the thing about democracy. A lot of people sometimes feel, and it's a very it's the classic Popperian paradox, right? That how much do we tolerate? My retort to this is always very standard. In a democracy, these separatist elements, these ugra elements that exist in our society, like people don't like to listen to this, but even in Pakistan, right? The most hardline Islamist political outfits, they don't get the maximum votes. They don't.
Yeah, they don't.
People by and large reject them. So, थोड़ा बहुत लोगों के ऊपर भरोसा करना चाहिए हमको. थोड़ा बहुत. I think we need to have a little bit of faith in people too.
Yeah.
Second, I think over the years, whether people like it or not, the good policies of the Narendra Modi government have made inroads into different sections of society. Look, the BJP has come a long way from only being, they having the tag of being a Brahmin Baniya party to now being the single largest fort amongst the lower castes in India.
Yeah, absolutely.
They must have done something right there. Their social welfare schemes are working. As someone who's worked on the ground with these social welfare schemes, I can tell you they work. I have seen it with my own eyes. I'll give you a small example. In the village I worked, उधर BJP को कोई vote ही नहीं करता था यार. वोट ही नहीं करता था उसको. And now the BJP got so many votes in that area.
Absolutely.
So that's the whole point. I have seen it with my own eyes. And this, I believe eventually there will be a chunk of Muslims that might move out of there. One last question before we wrap things up. Somebody has said,
sorry. Before you ask that question, I have to tell you a quote, right? And I disagree with the politics of Churchill, but he had this wonderful quote about democracy, right? Where he says, democracy is the worst form of government except all the others.
Yes.
So I know it's frustrating, it's crazy, but we gotta live with it, guys, because that's the only way.
So Sasidharan Karthikeyan has become very jazbati. He says, will Badruddin Ajmal try his luck in other states? Bhaiya, matlab, Owaisi goes to his state, he goes to Owaisi state. I'm very happy. Let them cut
that will be fantastic. I hope you contest from Hyderabad Lok Sabha.
Yes. I encourage Badruddin Ajmal. Badruddin Ajmal amar rahe. Jaye aage. Lado.
So I mean, I don't think he will though, because see, he has enough. That's what I talk about, critical mass. He has Assam also has similar sort of situation as Kerala in terms of the size of the assembly, right? So he gets his 15-20 MLAs in the assembly, so enough where he can get his sort of voice heard and all that thing, or dhamaka karne ke liye kuch constructive na bhi karta ho. And that is what I mean, that if BJP gets into Kerala assembly, gets 2-3 Lok Sabha seats, then you're looking at place where BJP is actually forced to reckon within sections of Kerala, where people are like, acha, no, ye jeet sakte hai. Otherwise, rather than thinking, if we vote for BJP in Kerala, our vote is not, our vote is wasted, so let us vote for the less anti-Hindu party between the Congress and the left.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect way to end today's podcast. So once again, Aadit, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast. Before we wrap it up, can you tell everybody all the social media details of MyIndMakers so that they can go and check all the content at MyIndMakers out?
Yes, thank you for having me, Kushal. Yes, guys, please follow us at MyIndMakers, at MyIndMakers. We are on YouTube, we do, and SoundCloud, on all the other wonderful broadcast platforms. And then you can check www.myind.net, mind.net, where we have pieces, especially a lot of pieces focusing on foreign policy, strategic affairs, politics, current affairs. So do check it out, guys. And thank you for having me, Kushal. This was fantastic.
The pleasure was all mine, guys. So whatever details Aadit has mentioned over here, I've left it in the description of the podcast, the website, and Aadit's own Twitter handle too is there. So please follow Aadit on Twitter. You can go and visit MyIndMakers. They have brilliant articles and brilliant analysis. And if you like what I'm doing over here, please subscribe to the podcast, like the video, share the video, leave your comments over there. If you like what I'm doing over here, you can become a member of the YouTube channel, or you can subscribe on Patreon. If you want the Charvak podcast merch, you can go to kushalmehra.com/shop. I'll see you guys next time with another amazing guest. Until then, namaste, take care, goodbye.
Namaste, bye.